Okay. Well, yes, please. Okay. Hello. Come on in. Ken's gonna get you set up back there. I'm just getting everything set up here. I don't put you don't have to put it on for me. I'm just gonna say that. You wear it if you want to, but don't wear it for me because I want you to be able to breathe and I can't. We're being streamed.
Just hit unmute and now
Can-
we're talking.
I'm sorry. Can we have her sit maybe over there? Because Bettina's going to come back here.
Hi, Carlu.
Just to leave her unmuted.
And I'll turn up the volume, although that's the hard part. That's why I closed it. So you can hear it.
This is,
Whoop. And I made it go away, which it's okay. There we
I'm very good at making things go away when I want them.
go. And now you can say hello to Mary.
Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Carlu.
I can't hear. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. You gotta
I'll
get my
turn-
volume up.
Just my volume. How's that?
That's better.
Better.
Okay. Okay.
Now, can I move this farther? Do I have to, can I go like that? No, I don't.
There you go. Now you made it a little higher. Actually, it's the right little
Oh.
clicker.
This is the right one. This is
Yeah.
the right. That's where I was.
I mean, the left one. Sorry.
Now I lost it.
That's okay. And if you need help, I'll be just in the next room. Be able to tell you.
Just put it on high so I can hear. What'd
There
you
you go.
hit? Did you hit?
I hit this.
I did too, and then it went away.
Now I'm going to make it go away. So
Now, when I need to talk to her, what am I gonna do?
you just talk.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yep. Yep. You're okay.
Okay. You think?
I got to set up my own.
Jen,
Yeah.
I don't have that last memo you sent.
Okay. Got that right here for you.
I thought, I mean, I had it and that's what I've been using. And then when I look for it,
Okay. Yeah. Just let me know if you need anything else.
Thank you. I'm worse than a kindergartner.
Did you grab my packet? Yeah.
Did I grab yours? Is that mine?
I was just grabbing it.
Are you sure? Okay. Oh, I'm early. Hey.
That's scary. Piper, no, that's mine. The ones with those Piper. That one is yours. Then the other one that looks like that is mine. Piper?
And if you need anything,
Okay, I want to be sure on the volume. Because right now, I just have to hit this for volume. But where's the volume?
It'll be in the little picture down there.
There it is. Okay, there it
And
is.
then I just bring it up.
Well, you were up as high as we can get.
Yep.
I couldn't hear somebody just saying that as well, but maybe it's because she was in the background.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
May I ask who Kelly Flanagan is, please?
Sure, I am covering for Preston Gibson. I am a area manager for local community affairs and government relations.
Okay, thank you.
hello,
Absolutely.
who is she working for?
Excel, she's taking.
Oh, he's on Excel, okay.
Hudson's place.
hi
There's
Mary.
Tom.
Hi, Tom.
There's Corlu, how you doing?
I am here, Tom, see?
Yes, you are.
Thanks for the reminder, though.
You're welcome.
What about Sharon?
Anybody heard from Sharon?
She said she would be here.
Yesterday, she said she was gonna be here.
I'm hoping. There's Kent. Hi, Kent. And Derek, how are you? We've met the last time.
Yeah, good to see you all again.
And Kelly Flanagan. I don't think I know who that is. Kelly?
I'm Mr. Elliott. I'm covering
You're breaking
for
up. I
Preston
can't
Gibson.
understand.
Can you hear me?
Now,
I said Jason Gibson.
Oh, hi, Brett.
Hello.
I said
You're stuck drinking your mug of coffee. I assume it's coffee.
yeah, we'll assume.
Yeah, Kelly's with Excel Energy. She's filling in for Preston Gibson,
Oh, okay.
who is like an area manager
Huh?
for communication.
Well, we'll wait a minute for Sharon because she's supposed to be here.
Might freeze sometimes because of the internet.
Yeah, it froze, there's nothing on it except connecting.
Yep. Yeah. This is Kent. May I help you?
You might want to mute yourself.
Hold on just a second.
The internet.
If welcome any other comments, but I'm going to suggest that we take Brett Butson first because it seems to me his will be shorter. What do other members think?
That's where it is on the agenda, I think, Tom.
Okay, good. Okay.
I believe the agenda has the reading of the minutes first and then Brett Butson is next before public service.
Yes, there it is. I was looking at page 1.
No.
All right. Well, I hate to start without Sharon because she promised she'd be here.
Hmm.
I'm going to try to call her. Well, I just texted her saying we're starting our meeting. And if everybody else is ready, I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's, I don't know what time I have, 10:04.
10:04, yeah.
So Sharon hopefully will join us. The first thing we need to do is take roll. Jennifer, are you going to take roll or do you want me to?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Tom Elliott,
Here.
Mary Riddle Clark,
Here.
Cora Lou Anderson,
Here.
and Sharon Racino is absent.
Hopefully she'll join us. Then have we all had a chance to read the August 28th, 2019 minutes consisting of 2 pages and a signature page, so 3 pages? If
Yes.
so, if there's any changes or if we could have a motion to approve.
I so
moved.
move.
Or second it, then I'll second.
Okay,
Okay.
Mary moves and Cora Lou second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved.
Do I need to come in and sign those, Jennifer, or
Yes, please.
I'll stop by sometime and do that?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the land use application by Brett Butson for the project at 1776 and 1778 Main Street in Georgetown to replace and expand existing rear decks. And the record should reflect that I and Mary and Cora Lou visited the location 2 days ago and talked to Brett's wife, Lil, and she took us around and we saw the property and viewed it. And I think we all understood exactly what he's trying to do or what he would like to do. So I will let Brett make the statement. Support.
Well, I guess we're just trying to make our property more useful. And, currently, the back deck one is not, one more winter, and it's not going to be safe anymore, for one. And so we need to do something. In the process of doing so, we just want to expand a little bit and make it more useful and make it more, make it a space where our family can actually be out there and use the property. So that's kind of why I'm looking to expand a little bit, and we're hoping that you guys would agree that that's an okay idea. So.
And you own both pieces of property. I mean, you own both units.
I own the whole building, yes, sir.
And as I understand it, the current deck at 1778 Main Street already encroaches 3 or 4 feet on the, I guess it's the northeast corner.
That's correct.
And you're not expanding that, you're just replacing that part of the deck.
That part will just be replacing, yes, sir.
All right. It's the expansion of the deck behind 1776 Main Street, which will encroach 3 or 4 feet on the 15-foot set off.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Butson?
I'm just going to say, I'm glad we went down so we can understand what the whole situation is.
Say that again, Carla.
I said, I am just happy that we all went down and viewed the situation, so we know what the problem is and why and how he's going to expand.
Right. Is the town aware of any objections to this expansion?
No, it is not. There's also a staff report that was Martin completed and that we sent to you earlier this week.
Yes.
And then I can go through that staff report, Tom, if you'd like to.
Maybe we better. Yeah, that might be helpful.
But no, we did not receive any comments or questions or queries from neighboring property owners.
All right.
So,
If you'll just summarize. Oh, and there was a meeting last night of DRC. What happened there?
they reviewed the application and they made a recommendation that it be approved.
That it be approved as?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They didn't really have any conditions except that it meets DRC requirements, of course. But
okay,
as far as the application for the variance, they did.
Yeah.
They recommended approval. I'm looking for the little notes I had from last night as well. They have a positive, they view it as a positive addition to the property. And they have 7 items that they go over and they were all positive or no effect, neutral, no effect. And their overall recommendation was recommend to approve to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. And do you want to go over briefly just the staff report and what?
Yeah, this is a duplex at 1776 and 1778 Main Street. Requires an unspecified, the district is Meadows Residential District, requires an unspecified 15-foot rear yard setback. Accessory buildings are permitted within a 5-foot setback. The applicant is requesting to expand the deck 4 feet to the east on 1776 Main Street, and then expanding a deck 5 feet to the south at 1778. And it does show on your site plan where it encroaches approximately 3 feet into the rear setback for the 1776 property and approximately 4 feet into the rear setback on 1778 Main Street. Title 17 of the code gives guidance as to the approval process.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
Jen, I've got a note from Sharon that she can't log in and she's trying. Is there anything you can do from your end?
I can try to text her on my cell phone. I don't see her as an attendee or anything. So yeah, I can.
Okay,
text
try
her.
to do
Thank
that.
you.
Go
Sure.
ahead, Ken.
The guidance is to the approval or denial of a variance. It says the board may grant a variance only if it makes findings in the following requirements. That is a unique physical circumstance. The second one is unusual circumstances or conditions that do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district. C is physical circumstances or conditions that the property cannot be reasonably developed in conformity. That the unnecessary hardship hasn't been created by the applicant. That it doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and DRC mentioned that specifically. They don't think it'll alter the essential character of the neighborhood. That the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance allowed that would provide relief, least modification possible, and that it's not in a flood hazard area or geological area or a slope greater than 30%. In the letter dated April 29th, 2020 from Brett, the applicant indicates that the variance is warranted due to the irregular shape of the lot and the topography. That this is an existing situation not created by the applicant. It was there when he bought the property. That the deck replacement will not alter the character of the neighborhood, and the deck expansion is not in the flood hazard area or the geological hazard area. Martin wrote that the application is in order and should allow the board to make findings as to whether all the requirements have been met. If a variance is granted, both decks will be set back at least 10 feet from the property line still. So there's still some distance between this property and the neighbors. From experience working with zoning codes in a number of jurisdictions, Martin mentions, and I would mention the same thing, that the majority of communities have a 10-foot rear yard setback. So for this district in Georgetown, 15 foot is a little bit further, a little bit longer than that 10 foot. While the application is proper, it does not meet the requirements of code in being unique to this property or a hardship. While the house is set back, the rear property line is diagonal there, and there's no express right to put decks wherever you want on your property or decks of a required size. But he does put that the neighbor's opinions will be key here, because a variance really means that the setback protecting them or how close Brett's property is to the neighbors will be narrowed up a bit. But so that's what he puts. Staff has a recommendation. It can has a recommended motion either to deny or to approve. And really the main thing for the board is to state if it does approve, which I think based on DRC's recommendation and what staff views and what I've said regarding other communities, and that the back side of the property is topography up, it's not going to affect the neighboring properties, and we haven't heard from the neighbors. So it's really just trying to say that you approve it and that it does meet these conditions, that there's a little bit unique physical circumstance to the lot, that the deck will not hinder the character of the neighborhood, and those other things that I mentioned as far as the criteria that's mentioned in Title 17.
All right, thanks. And Brett, have you had any contact with your immediate neighbors that border you regarding their opinions?
Yeah, Kathy Hodge lives behind us, and she is A-okay with it. You know, there's that big retaining wall back there, so there's a pretty big barricade between their property and ours as is. And then Jules and April live next to us on the other side. And that is, there's already an easement in between our two properties as is. So the space is almost doubled, and they're okay with it. And then Kevin Marlin, who is in the process of building a house on the north side of the property, or on the south side of the property, he is he's on board with it too. He's,
So no neighbors are objecting to this.
no, none of my immediate neighbors have had any issues at all, so.
All right, and I think that in viewing the property, what we saw was that rock wall in the back, which really goes up, what, at least 10 feet, it looks like.
Yeah,
Really, that makes the property, in my opinion, pretty unique as far as the requirements, so,
right. It's like to climb on that wall.
yeah. So, any other questions or comments by the members of the?
No, except that I agree with you, Tom. It's such a unique situation with that wall that, I mean, they're not harming any neighbor's situation or property on that. Just with
I
the
agree.
15 rock wall like that, it's not too much you can do except enjoy that it's there and maintains a good boundary line.
All right. So, any other questions? Mary, do you have any questions?
No,
Or
I agree with you and Cora Lou.
okay, Jen, any luck getting Sharon on board?
Hold on, I gotta unmute myself.
She's trying.
Yes, I did text her the webinar ID, so she should be able to get on.
Huh. Well, let's go ahead with this. I'd entertain a motion either for approval or denial of Brett Butson's request.
I make a motion that we approve Brent's request for extending those decks on both sides of the property. On those both-
I second the motion, and I would like to know if we have an agenda item for this particular application. I don't see, usually we have an item number that is connected with it.
You cut out and I didn't hear the last part.
I said
It's
usually
agenda item number 1.
number 1, okay. That's
Yes,
fine.
okay.
And I did second the motion that Cora Lou brought up of approval.
Thanks, Mary.
All right, all those in favor, vote aye.
Hold on a
Aye.
second, Tom.
Aye.
Yeah, that's-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
Even though you said aye, and I appreciate that everybody did say aye. Well, for the record, there's findings that have to occur.
Okay, I'll go through those.
And do you have a copy of that checklist, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
There, I think, all right, before we vote on it, I'll go through the findings that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity or narrowness or shallowness of the lot or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. And that would include the 10-foot stone wall behind, I think. That the unusual
Sharon's in
circumstances
the
or
meeting.
conditions
She,
do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district.
okay, yeah, she's in it now.
That because of the physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of this title. Well, while that's not exactly been shown, I think that what Brett has let us know of his plans, that the expansion that he wants cannot be reasonably developed in conformity with the provisions. And I don't think it's reasonable to ignore his request by having him shorten those corners by 3 or 4 feet. That the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I think that's pretty clear. Nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of development of adjacent property. I think our findings include the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible. And the premises are not in a flood area. So have I covered that sufficiently, Kent?
Yes.
All right, so all those in favor of those findings, say aye.
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 Aye, this is Sharon. Aye.
All right, thanks, Sharon. And opposed? So it's unanimous that the property, that the applicant, Brett Butson, I'm sorry, is given permission to go ahead and expand his decks as submitted. And I think you're familiar with what you have to do from there, Brett, with the town?
I guess I don't know exactly what I need to do next, but
Can't
Brett,
reduce.
did we finish up at the DRC with you?
I'm not sure what else we need to do yet on the DRC.
It's just the certificate of appropriateness with the DRC, and I don't know if they approved it pending approval of the variance or if we need to go back there.
Okay,
We'll check that out.
okay, yeah, I'll get with you after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Brett. It's nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you online.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah,
Nice
thanks a lot.
meeting your wife and your 9-week-old child.
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna log off. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome, Sharon. Sorry you had problems.
That's just kind of how my day's going. It's user error.
All right, the next is the four applications for variances by Excel Energy. I am guessing it's probably appropriate to handle these one at a time. Anybody disagree with that?
I agree. I agree that we should handle one at a time.
Right. All right. First of all, we have received a couple of comments from Michael Hosevar and from Kent
Derek.
Kent Starrett. Thank you. And they've been responded to by Burns and McDonald representing Excel Energy. I think we all have copies of those.
Yep.
I don't know if I do or not.
So let's go ahead and on the first application for variance regarding the Georgetown substation of the Excel Energy. And the location of that is at the substation on the extreme south part of that, I think, past the grid, more in the area of the end of 5th Street. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's actually,
That's pretty close.
All right,
it's located at the rear end of the substation.
right.
Something that the DRC had commented on when we were doing the COA application, that they would prefer it to be.
Could you get a little closer? I'm having a little difficulty hearing.
Sure.
There you go. That's great.
That's something that the DRC had asked us when we were getting the COA application to see if we could have it blend in a little bit better with the existing equipment in the substation. So the location we ended up on was kind of per the guidance of the DRC.
Further where? You say it's further, you've changed the exact location?
No, it's, well, we initially had it a little bit closer to the substation equipment itself. But because of the underground distribution that's within the substation, it wasn't possible. So we still moved it further south, but yet still in line with the substation equipment to help it blend in a little bit better.
Is it correct on our map as is?
Correct, yes.
So do you want to go ahead and make a brief presentation, a summary of your request?
Sure. I can give you a little bit of background. we've been working on this for the better part of 2 years now, and thanks to Kent's help, I think we have finally landed on 4 locations that we believe are the best. We did look at some other locations throughout the town. So we did, go through a series of 2 different hearings with the DRC. They had some questions and concerns about the cultural impact, since the town is essentially a historic district. So we did have to do a continuance with the hearing, and we're able to address all of their concerns. The locations where the sirens are proposed are not of a concern to SHPO. So then we did reconvene with the DRC. We got approval for the location of the substation, or I'm sorry, the poles, the type of sirens that were going to be, and the heights. We did get the COA app certification from them. We just had to make sure we go through the variance process with you all to make sure that the heights would be approved as we have them proposed. So the first one that we're looking at here, I believe, is that the substation. That's on property that's owned by Public Service Company of Colorado. And like I said, we worked with the DRC on the best location to put it inside the substation. The height proposed in the substation is going to be 45 feet. And the current height maximum limitation for that zone district is 30 feet. However, there are pieces of equipment inside the substation that are in excess of 45 feet. So the thought was we could put it at a location that would help blend it in with some of the existing substation equipment. I think we were able, there weren't any comments that came back from the public, I guess, specifically to this location. I think they were in reference to the other 3. So as far as I know, there weren't any issues from the surrounding public on this site. If we were to look at, maybe not getting the variance for this, the issue there is then we would have to lower the siren to that 30 foot. And then we're not getting the proper coverage that we need to make sure the sound covers the entire limits of the town. So in that case, we would have to lower the siren and then put additional sirens throughout the town, which, could then further impact the community there. We also may run into a situation where we find a good location, but the landowner is not willing to cooperate. So, with the pole location here on public service property, we don't have an issue there. They own the property. And then the other 3 sirens are on property owned by the town of Georgetown. And
Derek, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what kind of tests have you done to determine how far the sound will travel at 30 versus 45 feet?
Yeah, there's a model that's done with the siren manufacturer. They kind of run all these tests.
So it's just a model. It hasn't actually been tested here.
Not tested in Georgetown specifically, but they have other sirens, similar sirens installed throughout the country, and they kind of use that
Sure. Yeah, I understand. But, being in this valley, I mean, you probably noticed how sound travels from the highway, bounces off mountainsides and whatnot. So I just wanted to bring that point up to the board. Sound travels very differently here in this valley than it does, in the middle of Kansas.
Sure,
So.
absolutely, yeah. And that's a consideration that the manufacturer takes in consideration when they do their modeling, the acoustics of the surrounding area. I can't speak to how exactly they do that modeling, unfortunately, but I do know that the folks that we're working with, they specialize in sirens and specialize a lot in dam safety sirens too, which these are specifically designed for.
I've got a question along that line too. In in the photo that you have of the town, I believe I'm reading this correctly. You show for a 5-cell siren. Is that what this is? A 5-cell siren?
Correct.
2,000 foot perimeter for sound at 45 feet. At 35 feet, it's 1,500 foot perimeter. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
So that's 1,000 feet further that it would be heard if it were 10 feet higher? If it were 45 feet instead of 35 feet?
Correct,
Like-
yeah.
So then I noticed, and it's hard to discuss one of these without discussing all of them.
Right.
I noticed the one at Whirland Park, you're only doing a variance to the height of 35 feet as opposed to 45 feet for the other three. So why do towers 1, 2, and 3 need a larger perimeter?
I think that's due to the kind of the surrounding topography, the surrounding type of development. And that's, I believe that's just how the modeling shaped up after considering all of those factors. What the circles were derived from the model.
All right, I guess I'm wondering why isn't 1,500 feet or a 35-foot height good for all 4 locations or adequate for all 4 locations? Can you answer that?
Yeah, it also has to do with the placement. The one at the substation and the one at Whirland Park are placed a little bit closer together. So there's a little bit of an overlap there, but as you know, for the one from Whirland Park to Meadows Park, there's a lot of more distance in between.
Right.
Siren went higher to capture more of the coverage there. And then same with the one at Georgetown Lake.
Okay.
Just thinking of, Tom, oh, excuse me, Tom.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking of the one there at the public service area. I mean, we hear the trucks from up on the highway coming clear across town to that station as clearly as you would. Why do we need to have such a high profile on that particular one?
Well, there's also OSHA regulations that need to be considered as well. These sirens have to be at a height that, if someone were standing at the ground.
Sorry, I didn't understand the last few words you said.
There's a OSHA regulation you have to follow. If the sign is placed at a where someone is standing.
But it's cutting in and out.
I can't hear him either, Corlu.
Something about being on the ground, being able to hear it. What was that?
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure that is determined by standards as well.
Can't hear you.
That's not.
I can't hear you.
Can you type a message? Can you chat and type what you're trying to say? I'm sorry. We just can't understand what you're saying.
I think what Derek is trying to say is that we don't want them to be so low that if you're walking on the ground, it is dam distance.
Correct.
If you're working on the ground, what?
Yeah, that's what we did miss.
I didn't hear it.
Not hearing that.
Too many people in the video. If you're on the ground, it can damage hearing. That's what, if you get.
That's
that
what
was,
we didn't hear.
I think that's what they're trying to communicate.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
We may have interrupted your presentation, Mr. Holscher. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I apologize for if I'm not coming in clear, but I think that's about it.
Okay, it sounds good now. You sound good now.
Okay.
Any other questions from staff? I mean,
That
from
just
the members?
concerning is that just concerning the one up here at the public service building?
That's all we're dealing with right now.
Right. I mean, first of all, it's at a good location as far as not interrupting any of our historical vision, but because there's all public service bit. But I just am concerned with the amount of volume against the mountain that's bouncing off the mountain there, both sides and all around, except toward the north.
You know, I had another question about coverage. It sounds like these are warnings from any dams that break at Cabin Creek hydroelectric plant, right?
Correct, yeah.
And the Georgetown Penstock Lake, the water storage lake?
Correct.
Why isn't Clear Lake included? Because doesn't Xcel Energy own that?
Yeah, it's for all the dam-related facilities upstream of town.
Yes.
Yeah, so any kind of dam facility up there.
Okay, well, the Burns McDonald memorandum, the response to Mr. Hocevar and Kent Starrett, you don't mention the Clear Lake facility as having the same float switches in place. Does it have that? If the water suddenly goes too far, it activates these sirens within half a second.
Have the same type of equipment installed as part of the sirens. I think I just kind of as an overview, Creek and George hydro facilities.
Now you're breaking up again. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to try and type it.
I get nothing.
Sharon, we're getting some background noise from you moving around. I wonder if that's interfering.
That's better.
Go ahead, Mr. Holscher.
Yeah, is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. Turn off my video to see if that will help at all. But basically, I kind of summarized everything. The Cabin Creek and Georgetown hydro facility.
Now you're breaking up again. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You want to try again?
I was going to try to type in the response here. If that's
Okay.
So basically, all the reservoirs associated with Georgetown and Cabin Creek are included here. The sirens would cover all of those facilities.
Okay, so the Clear Lake Reservoir has the same float switch there that would activate the sirens?
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be operated manually as well.
I'm sorry?
Or it could be operated manually as well.
Just not getting you. I'm sorry, I can't.
I think you said, or could be operated manually.
That was in the packet from that it could be operated manually as well. I have a question when it's time.
Okay, go ahead.
And this probably is my ignorance, but could these sirens possibly be used in case of a fire danger? I suppose it's only flood, but fire is more of a worry to our town.
Sure. No, these sirens are specifically for the dam related.
Well, it seems to me like they would have to be separate. And do they sound, is the sound different from what a fire alarm siren would sound like?
Not sure. Yeah, sirens aren't equipped to go off in the event of a dam failure.
See, it seems critical to me that residents should immediately recognize the meaning of these sirens, because they're not going to have much time to get out of town.
Right.
So, and that how often are these going to be tested?
Right.
I really think the residents need to be aware of these and the different tone or whatever.
Absolutely, and that was included in my response to Mr. Starrett's question.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, when the sirens are installed initially, it would be for prefer to test them at full level. And we can, obviously coordinate with the test resident, give them sufficient notice on when those would be tested. And then after that, they're tested 1 to 2 times a year.
With warning, I hope.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Each time there would be proper notification. All the emergency managers that are on Excel's emergency action plan, which includes the Clear Creek County Sheriff.
Are you able to estimate how much time residents would have between say a break in the dam to the time that they hear that siren, and how much time would the residents have to get out before the water arrives is, I guess, my question.
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't have that, and it kind of depends on the level of the failure. If it's a slower leak, or if it's a complete, complete failure where the whole dam collapses. I think those times obviously vary, and I just don't have those figures or numbers.
Well, I think we have to assume we're never going to have enough time.
No.
Probably so, but having these alarms, to me, having some sort of an alarm is certainly better than none.
Correct, yeah.
I would like to know if the alarm sound, if the sound of the alarm has a different tone than does our noon or whenever we do use the siren here in town. How is it that we're going to differentiate between that sound and those sirens that we have in town as now?
What is the siren that goes off at the town currently? Are you speaking?
Yes, there are some sirens.
And
I didn't. Do we have one?
Well, we have in the past. We've had, of course, that was years ago when we had the noon siren, but there have been sirens in the past.
Well, the one in Worland Park hasn't been working for years, so that's the only one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, but there used to be one there from the public service, and then I'm just wondering about, just the sirens when the fire trucks are running around town, for people to know the difference.
Yeah, I think the volume or tone of the sirens for the dam safety are going to be louder than the fire trucks and more distinguishable. And I think that would be part of the installation process, why we would do it at full. Give folks the chance to
Any other questions?
Send over the responses from Derek.
Oh, okay.
Now, just a point of procedure, are we ready to vote on this one request for variance, the one at the substation? Or should we hold off on our vote till we hear the presentations about the other three?
I think each one is individually important.
So are you ready for a vote on this one now?
I don't know that I am. I'm sorry. I still can't wrap my mind around the model that's used. I mean, the noise travels so greatly in this valley. I mean, it just travels up and down this valley, and I don't know. I'd like some more time. I'm not prepared to vote on that just yet. I'm sorry.
So what else are you asking for, Sharon?
Well, I would really love to see the actually happen, to see how the sound travels before we allow 10 extra feet on a siren that may be unnecessary. I mean, if that siren goes off and it's heard clear down to the lake, then we're installing 10 extra feet that is definitely going to be more of an eyesore, I think. I don't know. I go back to that tower at the county all the time, and installing these gigantic structures downtown, I have a problem with it, but that's just how I feel about it. I have a hard time voting on it if the sirens haven't actually been tested in this valley.
I don't know how. Well, Mr. Holscher, how can the sirens be tested in the valley without installing them? I guess is my question. Can you answer that?
You know, not specifically. I think our siren manufacturer and installer could probably better address that. But in my conversation with him, the height is all based on the surrounding topography, as well as the sound level has to be achieved so there's damage caused standing on the ground. If they were standing right next to the siren, it can't be at a volume that would cause damage. So the height of the pole is a factor of keeping that level safe volume, as well as the surrounding.
So you're within the OSHA standards at the levels that you're requesting. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, and that is a big determining factor.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I thought there were other towers that were being installed at lower heights. Did I misunderstand that?
There's one, the one at Whirland Park is being installed at a height of 35 feet. The other three are 45 feet.
Well, what's the
And the
difference at Whirland
Okay,
Park?
you might have
we're all
missed
at
that.
Whirland
I
Park
asked
with our
that.
dogs.
I asked that question before, so you might have missed that, Sharon. Mr.
No, I
Holscher, can you address that
did
again?
hear it, but
I'm sorry, it looked like Kent maybe had a question.
Sharon, ask your question.
I think it was Kent.
Or Cam, I'm sorry.
I don't have a question. I was just saying that regarding Whirland Park, there was a couple reasons that it was, the applicant had decided to place a little bit lower. One was it's more near what was in Whirland Park previously.
Right.
And then there's a little more overlap between the southmost one at the public station, or public service station, power station. There's a little more overlap.
Well, I
from the public power
understand
station
that.
to Whirland Park. And then from Whirland Park to Meadows Park is longer. And then Meadows Park, there's also the ridge that affects the height of the pole a little bit of where it's being placed.
Right, but I thought what Derek was saying was that the reason it needed to be installed at 45 feet was so that it didn't damage human beings, hearing. And if we're installing one at 35 feet at Whirland Park, I mean, what's the difference? I mean, we're all at the park all the time. So I guess that's where I'm confused.
I have a
So we're
question.
installing some at 35 and some at 45, but go ahead, Mary.
Well,
The law, the rule is 30 feet, and the one at Whirland Park would be only 5 feet over the 30 feet. Is that
that's right.
what they're asking? So what if we said all of them had to be 35 feet? They're installed, I think your reasoning was, well, because the other side of town couldn't hear it. What if we installed them all at 35 feet, tested them, and all of town could hear them? Then we wouldn't have to have any more. I mean, that's just a suggestion, but I agree with Sharon that 45 feet.
We'll ask Mr. Holscher to address that.
Yeah, I think if all four sirens were installed at the 35-foot height, get the proper coverage that's needed. So then additional sirens would be needed.
Now you're breaking up again.
Well, my question is, if we installed them and tried them and they weren't needed, well, that's a hypothetical, I suppose.
Go ahead. You want to give it another try, Mr. Olsher, but you were breaking up.
I'm trying to type in my response here, so maybe it's a little bit clearer.
Okay,
I think he said if he installed them at 35 feet, then an additional siren would need to be installed for coverage.
Correct.
at 35 feet.
Or,
Yeah.
or more than one siren, multiple sirens would be needed in order to get the proper coverage.
So, okay.
And we may not be able to find opportunities for those sites because we've already spent the better part of 2 years trying to locate these 4 sites. You run into issues of where, oh, looks like Kathy's trying to speak. You run into the risk of landowners not wanting to cooperate. They don't want a siren.
How tall is the one at the courthouse for the sheriff department?
Oh, that's
good.
way high.
Yeah.
That's 110 feet, I
Ah.
believe.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. And I'm looking at the 2 objections, that written objections, and I think that the response that Public Service made have pretty much answered the objections that both Mr. Ostvarn and Kent Starrett had. And a lot of
May I
those.
please ask a question?
Sure. Who's this?
I guess no one's here. This is Kathy Grant.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
My internet connection is poor.
we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. You know, I had a question and my neighbors were all wondering, I don't know exactly what the location is up here. You know, we're at the Mountain Creek Townhomes and you're talking about up at the tennis courts. Where exactly are you talking about there for that pole?
Okay, Mr. Olsher.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I guess just east of the tennis courts. Existing siren there right now, and that would be taken down.
Just east? It's not on top of where the stairs go up?
Do you know where the old current tower is, Kathy? Do you know where the current tower is?
No.
Siren tower is?
Is it towards Denver on, you know, like that side of like the tennis courts?
Yeah.
Or is it this way? Is it that way?
I believe it's towards Denver.
Correct. It would be in between.
Right, that's, okay, that's,
It's the same location as the current non-working siren.
I think I do know then, because some of the neighbors were concerned that it was going to be right at the top of the stairs that go up. Any of them, that's their only point of vision. And I think that's a concern with the 35 to 45 as well. Not so much for me, but for some of those places up there. But I do understand also that all of a sudden it widens out here and you have that whole lake and, you know, all up Saxon that has to be able to hear it too.
Correct. Yeah, the proposed siren.
So I just want,
The proposed siren would replace the existing one, and it's right in between Main Street and the basketball.
Okay.
In the basketball courts. And
I think I know where you're about. As long as it's replacing the existing one, I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Sure. And I just wanted to point out that I think Kent kind of touched on it earlier, that the pole kind of sits below the grade of the road. So you found that as an opportunity to still use a 45-foot pole, but from road level, it sits a little bit lower.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have a
How many
general,
poles, Tom,
Go ahead.
excuse me. I'm just looking
Go
at the
ahead,
one
you
down there by, at the Merlin Park. And I just think there's so many towers down there. I was just trying to think how that is and above those towers, or what will it be?
What towers you're talking about?
Down there at Merlin Park. Is it
Other
just
towers
replacing the
beside-
existing one?
They would have to remove the existing one and then install the new one, and it'll be in approximately the same location. It might be shifted like a couple feet or so, but
So we're getting rid of one and adding one.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And, that is a good opportunity as well. And then along Tawa Street, there's a large stand of trees. So we were hoping that the trees would help screen the siren as well.
Since we've discussed 3 of the 4 towers, are there any questions regarding the 4th tower down by the lake?
Let her be. Let her be.
Well-
Actually,
Tom, I have an overall question. People have said to me as they learn about this, why are they doing it? Do they think their dam is going to break? And I'd like to hear a little bit about the strength of the dams, please.
Yeah, it's not driven by the quality or integrity of the dams at all. It's part of the emergency action plan that Xcel Energy has in place for the dams altogether. This was a regulation that was put forth by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. As part of the emergency action plan, there needs to be some device in place to provide early warning. It's industry standard to use these sirens, so they're trying to keep their emergency action plan up to date with the FERC regulations.
Do there have to be early warning systems further downstream?
No, I think they're just trying to capture the area that has the largest population closest to the dam. I don't think anything else would be required further downstream.
she get washed out.
Once the emergency sirens go off, then all the emergency managers that are part of the plan that Xcel Energy has are then put on notification, and there's a procedure to follow at that point.
Okay.
So others outside of Georgetown would be notified at the same time.
I assume any question about Georgetown Lake Dam breaking would be a totally different issue that doesn't concern us at this time.
Yeah, these steps wouldn't respond to that dam failure.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Tom?
Yes.
I'd just like to make a statement. I hate having all these things being put into town. And I mean, I guess it's for that one time out of a million when the dam breaks. But we keep having all these different things added to our town to destroy a vision that we have when we came here, or we have people come here to see us and be part of us. And I just wish that they could do the best they could to camouflage all these things.
How could you?
I'm just concerned about all the visual that we get having of all these, the maybes. And I don't know,
They did provide a photo of these towers.
Correct.
Have you seen that? And it certainly, to me, it seems quite unobtrusive.
Good,
Yeah,
I'm glad you think that. Makes me feel better.
That was a
Can
big.
you share that? Can you share that? Can we see it?
Can you share,
I
can you
haven't
show the
seen it.
pictures of she?
Can somebody show us
There.
I've got it here. Let me just a
Oh,
minute.
okay.
You mean
Yeah.
hold it up to the,
This was a big discussion topic with the DRC, was the visual appearance of them. And I think, what they had asked for and what we had accommodated was the type of siren at the top would be a flat black finish, so it won't be reflective. And then obviously we'll be using the same wood pole. And then the box, equipment box that's at the bottom of the pole will be painted to match the pole. So it's not, that shinier, brighter silver color right there. It'll be more blending into the pole, hopefully. So those were some of the issues that the DR brought up and that we've accommodated.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to maybe address Mrs. Anderson's comment, we had, that was one of the big things on our mind when trying to, cite these locations was the visual impact. And I think, the one up at Georgetown Lake, granted, there's not residents in the area, there are a lot of visitors, but there's an existing transmission line that's adjacent to the frontage road there. So the idea was that the siren pole would kind of blend in with the transmission line. It's got similar facilities in the adjacent area. And then with Meadows Park and Worland Park, we're taking the opportunity to remove the existing sirens and replace them with these new ones. Granted, they're a little bit taller, but the Worland Park location has some nice trees that would help provide screening. And then, like I mentioned, the one at Meadows Park sits below the ground a little bit, so we're trying to take advantage of that grade difference. And then finally, the one at the substation, we picked a location that we thought would help blend in better with the existing substation equipment. So yeah, that was definitely something on our minds and feedback that we got from the town initially regarding visual impacts. We wanted to try to address that as much as possible. I think someone.
So I'm sorry, did I miss where exactly it was going to be placed at the substation?
Yes, you did. You were not with us then.
Go ahead,
It's up
Mr.
there.
Wilson, and explain that.
Yeah, it's going to be
I'm
kind of the, I guess would be the southern end of the substation. And it'll sit behind the existing substation equipment. So if you're looking from, essentially where town hall is at there, it's going to blend in with the existing substation equipment.
Okay.
Actually, some of
No,
it
you won't see it.
is taller than the
I have one other question, and I appreciate you answering as you have this prior one. The question is, how are we letting people know that this is a trial test twice a year? We have so many visitors in town.
They're gonna freak.
Well, I think, we would definitely provide as much notice as we can to everyone in the town. I don't know exactly how we would do that, but I think it's outlined in the emergency action plan. But we would provide notice ahead of time. And I don't know if it'd be possible that the day of the testing, maybe local businesses can share with, maybe put a posting on their front door so folks are aware if they are residents, if they're visitors, of what would be happening that day.
There's a lot of folks in town that would probably just as soon not have the visitors warned. If the siren goes off, maybe they'll leave town quickly.
I disagree with you on that, Tom. How am I going to keep in business?
I'm saying some people think that way, not me.
Ones that don't make money from tourists, I imagine.
And we can definitely coordinate with, the town and Clear Creek County on that. And maybe it's a matter of putting a large sign, those kind of ones you see along the highway sometimes. Right when you come off the interstate, maybe we could have a sign there that says sirens testing today at 1 p.m.
Is this once a year?
Twice.
Once to twice a year, at least once.
Or
And like I said, after the initial incident, the annual test is done silently, but it's recommended to do it at full.
I have to go along with Michael Hulsavar on his sounding, saying that the audio is so demanding, because I taught school in Carlson Elementary in Idaho Springs when we used to have that go off frequently, and you had to stop for 5 or 10 minutes before you could get the class back into hearing. Also, as a child here growing up, at noon every day we used to have a siren, And we had to always inform the people around who are visiting that they didn't have to worry. So we need to have some type of thing, knowing that these people who are visiting us, they're not scared to death this great flood is happening or some great giant problem has occurred. So I just think it's very important to let people know, even all the businesses. I mean, even then when it was every noon, and we could hear that all over town. There was only one siren. It was a public service, and you could hear it almost down to the
Look at
tennis
this.
court.
Well, I think one way to kind of ease that problem is, do it on a Tuesday when thousands of tourists aren't in town. And maybe it's, spring, early spring, when we don't have a lot of folks in town visiting, and the end of fall. I'm sure they can come up with times where the tourist population is much less than it would be in midsummer. So
Absolutely.
I do, regarding Mr. Hostfar's letter, I do think that XL Energy has established a better need for a siren as opposed to either reverse 911 calls or law enforcement warnings that we now would have, simply because it's so much faster, the warning. So I think Mr. Hostfar's letter has been answered pretty well. And also, a lot of Mr. Sterrett's objections should be handled by the town. That's the question. A lot of the questions he have, we're not dealing with. The Board of Adjustment shouldn't deal with. That's up to the town. So, any other comments on them?
just that I wouldn't want this to set a precedence. That's all. This is obviously a need that we have as a community for safety. And, the letter from Mr. Sterrett was clearly trying to, I'm not quite sure, but set some sort of precedence maybe for future height changes. But I guess that's why we have the Board of Adjustments. So.
And the DRC.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. And I think I tried to explain in the comments there that, the type of development that we're dealing with here, these emergency warning sirens, weren't contemplated in the town's municipal code. So that's why the town has this variance process to kind of address those types of developments that weren't, sufficiently addressed in the code.
I appreciate all your comments, and I think everyone is feeling a little bit better. And I understand why we need one. I mean, it'd be one time in a million, but there's always that one time in a million that we need to have that.
Right.
And I think it's so important, though, that everybody know it's only a test.
Correct.
I agree. Okay, are we, any other questions? Well, then let's go through the findings. That there are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the properties, or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. I know of none.
Because of the nature of this variance request, some of these may be, it's not like a typical variance. They may be not applicable because it's.
That really isn't applicable.
Yeah.
Unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. I don't believe that's applicable either.
No.
Correct me if anyone thinks differently. Because of such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of this title. And I guess we're talking specifically 30 feet limit as opposed to the 45-foot request. Any comments there?
Well, and also maybe the footprint of the siren itself would not prohibit development on a property.
Okay.
How large is the footprint?
Oh, I think the diameter of these at the base are, I think it's 10 inches to a foot.
Plus the
Because
box at the bottom.
How about the bottom?
Does that include the box?
yeah, the box is actually off the ground,
Oh,
mounted.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The easement that we have for each of these is a 10 foot by 10 foot square.
All right.
But that also allows room for installation of the facilities too.
I think
Also allows what?
The installation of them,
Okay.
enough room to work.
requirement D, the applicant certainly has not created this unnecessary hardship. We agree with that. That the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of development of the adjacent property. I think it's important to note that I think 2 of these are replacing current towers. It's simply the height that's changing. And 1 tower is on Xcel Energy's property. The only other new one is at the lake.
How close is the one at the lake to the new development of the hotel and the brewery and all? I know it's in the picture, but.
It's in the parking lot of the warming hut,
Oh, okay.
and it's actually towards the north side of the warming hut. So it's on the opposite side of the warming hut from the
So
rest
it'd
of the
certainly
development.
be heard by the hotel residents.
Yeah,
Hotel needs to be big notice for their people.
well, if we
Okay.
take Tom's advice, we won't let them get noticed and then see if how many people leave, but.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be great. Go on, Tom.
The variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible of the title provisions which are in question. I feel that they've explained sufficiently why it needs to be 45 feet instead of 30 feet. Anybody have input in that or feel contrary?
I'm just glad we're doing forward.
Carla, we didn't hear you.
I feel good about the fact that they're only having 4.
Can't hear you.
Something's
hear
going
her.
on. We can't.
She,
She said she's excited that there's gonna be 4 and not 6.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And can I ask a question as long as I'm talking? Do you guys test the current ones that are there? Because I've never heard of a test
they're not.
gone off.
They're not functioning, I'm sure.
They're not.
Functionable.
I'm sorry, Jen, was the question about the existing sirens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't been in operation for quite
Years.
some time. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't believe they're even
Thank you.
there's power hooked up to them anymore.
Okay. No wonder.
All right. And finally, the last, the variance will not permit development in a flood hazard area.
Sort of.
Are any of these in the flood hazard area? How about the lake one?
I think the one that would probably be the one that was closest, but it's outside of the floodplain.
It's not in the hazard area, flood hazard area.
No, none of the 4 are.
Okay.
I'd just like to go back real quickly, Tom. I'm sorry, I had my mute button on. I was trying to talk and I forgot I put my mute on. I'm still just questioning why 1 pole can be at 35 feet if the reason that we're raising them to 45 feet is because of the potential for damage to people's hearing. I don't know why the one at Whirland Park would still be at 35 feet. That's a residential area. I mean, I'm not suggesting that it go any higher because it may be an eyesore, but I just want to ask that question again. Why is it okay for the one in Whirland Park to be at 35 feet when all the rest of them are at 45? If it's a risk.
Go ahead, Mr. Holzer.
Yeah, I think it's just a function. I don't have a specific answer, unfortunately, Sharon. I think it's just a factor of the model that was run. If the factor of the set off a little bit further away from the slope, the topography going there to the east.
She's not even listening.
But that's just what was turned out during the model, which encompasses all of these factors of existing development, topography, and those types of environmental issues, I guess, or environmental constraints.
My take on that is it sounds like it's nice that the other three will be at 45 feet. And we certainly don't want, I think that's better to keep it at 4 sirens in town than more.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, and I'm grateful for that also, Tom. But I mean, if part of the reason they're all at 45 feet is that it could damage someone's hearing, I just can't wrap my mind around why it would be at a lower height in a residential area.
So you think the 35-foot one might damage people's hearing?
Well, I don't know. That's what I
your
took
question.
from Derek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason we're putting the others at 45 feet is so that it doesn't damage people's hearing. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I think another factor or function of the it being 35 feet is the distance between the other 2 sirens, the siren to the north.
Okay,
and
so compounded at 45 feet and 45 feet and 45 feet, that all has an effect on the damage on someone's ears?
I think it's more that, I think it's coverage. And then the other is how it works OSHA on the ground as well. So they're trying to have the coverage loops. So the 35 feet, it's only covering a certain area.
Yeah,
A small
I do
area.
understand about the coverage. I fully can grasp that. I'm just stuck on the damage to the hearing part, which was one of the reasons that these towers are going in at 45 feet so that it didn't damage people's hearing. Yet there's one at 35. I don't know what the solution is, and I just feel like I don't have enough information right now, and I don't want to waste any more of anyone's time with this same issue. But I just wanted to say I still don't understand why it's okay at 35 in one area with regard to damaging someone's ears.
And weren't they in a previous meeting, Derek? Wasn't it presented that it could be programmed at a little bit differently at the different heights or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
that amongst all the several hearings we've had.
correct. Yeah, I think they did the model and they can adjust the volume essentially.
I know that brings up another question.
You're breaking up.
Okay.
I'm not hearing anything.
Is that any better?
That's better.
Yeah.
I think Kent was on the right track there, where they came to falling off again.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Where they can adjust the decibel on the one at the park to still get the coverage they need and keep that decibel level at a safe level.
That would make sense to me. Thank you. That answers the question. So then all of the towers probably have the ability to adjust the decibel level.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's good. That's good to know. All right. Having gone through that as to the tower, the siren tower at the substation, are we ready to suggest a motion? Does anyone want to make a motion one way or the other? Well, I'll make a motion that the substation tower be allowed to be built at a height of 45 feet. And do I have to go through the characteristics again of the variance ordinance? I think I've done that to everybody's satisfaction. Is that correct?
How about as submitted?
As submitted, okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that. This is Sharon Racino.
Okay, all in favor, vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hesitantly, but aye.
All right.
Hesitantly, but aye.
I heard some hesitant ayes, but I heard 4 ayes. Are there any opposed? The motion carries. That's granted. Okay, the next one is the substation
We
at
just did the-
Georgetown Lake is the one I have. Now I've just numbered mine. I don't.
Georgetown Lake is fine.
Okay. I think we've heard, well, Mr. Holscher, do you wish to add anything else?
No, I don't think so at this point. Thank you for the opportunity. Just hope I was able to address the question.
All right. So, is there any questions regarding the Georgetown Lake Tower siren? All right.
Can't hear you, Corlew.
I said I move that we accept the Georgetown.
Your sound is not coming in. It's very.
It's garbled.
Very robotic.
It's probably because it's so loud.
Try it again.
She moves to approve.
I said I so move that we approve.
We can't hear.
She
I think
moved.
she
She so
made a
moved.
motion.
She made a motion.
Oh, okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. So,
Well, do we still go, you want to still go through the
right.
variances? of
I'm
the,
sorry. Who moved? I missed who moved and seconded. I was
I-
trying
Corlew
to.
moved.
And Mary Clark seconded.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go through the characteristics that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. And we're talking about the Georgetown Lake Tower. That the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. And again, some of these clearly don't apply, but I'm going to go through them. And if there's any comments or questions, please ask. That because of such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of this title. That such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant, Xcel Energy. That the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of development of adjacent property. F, that the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible of the title provisions which are in question. And again, here we are, Xcel is asking to raise a new tower, not replace a tower, a new tower 45 feet tall. And G, that I think we've already heard, it's not in a flood hazard area. So any questions or comments relating to that before we have a vote? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
people in their testing.
I think that was 4 ayes. Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So that variance is granted. Parcel 3 is the warning siren at Meadows Park, basketball.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes,
I'm sorry. Cora Lou has a question that she wanted me to ask because she can't be heard.
okay.
She wants to know how people are going to know that it's a test and not the real thing.
Does that impact the vote that we just had? Are you asking that, Cora Lou?
She says it could.
I'm sorry?
She said it could.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Holscher. We'll hold up on the vote.
Sure. I think the notification that we're going to be doing for the whole town, including the emergency managers in the emergency action plan, we will specify that this is, so the notification goes out to the town. Uh-oh.
Can't hear you, Derek. Sorry. We caught the first part, but then we started losing you for the second part.
Notification that we do with
Yeah.
the specify.
We're losing you now. We can't hear you. We heard after specification, we lost you.
Okay. I'm going to try typing it in here.
Okay, thanks.
I hate to say it, but when Sharon sits down, it's better.
You know, I think so
Crying
too.
out loud. Gosh.
You know, I think that might be true.
The wind, I can hear the wind, I can hear it moving.
Mm-hmm.
Carlu, we can't hear you at all.
And they can't hear you, Corlo.
Go through Jennifer. Okay, are we getting a typed message?
Yeah, he's typing.
Okay,
Where do you look for the typed message in his box?
I can hear you.
It's not there yet because he hasn't pressed.
No, I
All of a sudden, we can hear you, Corley.
now we can hear you, Carlu.
Oh. And she was one of your students. She wanted to tell you.
Oh, funny.
Her name is Kelly. Her name
Yeah,
is
we can hear you.
Lauren. Was
Oh,
her-
Kelly Marlin.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you reading his comments, Carlu,
No, because I don't have them.
under chat?
Here.
Here comes my helper.
But what is the notification? Is it a phone call we're going to receive? Is it a reverse 911? What is the notification, I guess, is the question. And how much time will we have? Will we know a week ahead of time?
Before the test you're talking about.
Like the school should be notified quite ahead of time if it's in session. Who
Right.
knows if it will be?
Can you all hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay. The notification, they would plan to install them if they could this summer. So hopefully the school kids won't be in session. But we could definitely provide probably 2 weeks notice, I would think, at least. And we would coordinate with the town, with all the emergency managers that are part of Excel's emergency action plan, which includes the town and Clear Creek County. And yeah, we can do the reverse 911 calls. We can send out mailing notifications. That's something we'll have to coordinate with the emergency managers, but advance notice would be given. I would say at least 2 weeks. And it would also specify it strictly just testing purposes.
Does that answer your question, Carlu?
Yes, kind of.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? So now I'm going to ask for a vote again on the
The lake was what?
Georgetown Lake Tower. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. That variance is granted. And finally, we have.
No, we have two more.
I'm sorry.
I
Meadows
didn't want
Park.
you to. Okay.
Meadows Park, basketball, tennis courts.
Okay.
Any further? Well, let's just open it up for questions of Mr. Holscher. I think he's stated everything as far as all four. So, any questions? And this again is going from a current tower of 30 feet to a new tower of 45 feet. Are there any questions at all? All right.
No.
Then is there a motion one way or the other that anyone would like to make before I go through the requirements?
I'm
Also move.
that we accept.
Pardon me?
I move that we accept. This is Kathy Grant.
Well, it has to be a member of the
We're,
Board of Adjustment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Kathy.
Okay.
You should apply. We have an opening.
I didn't understand.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
All right, that's Sharon. Second,
Second.
Cora Lou. All right, going through the findings. But this is again, Meadows Park. There are unique physical circumstances or conditions such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. I don't think we need to specifically.
Can you hear him?
I can.
I can.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay,
kind of.
all right. That the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. These are
Not applicable, I don't think.
they really aren't applicable, but they are required to
Sure.
be read and discussed. That because of such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of this title. So that again, we're talking about the variance of height. That such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant, Xcel Energy. I think that's clear. That the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of development of adjacent property. So any way that going from 30 to 45 feet will affect that, in anybody's opinion. And the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible of the title provisions which are in question. And finally, that the variance, if granted, will not permit development in a flood hazard area or a geologic hazard area or on a lot having a slope in excess of 30%, contrary to the provisions for such development as cited in this title. All right, having gone through that, having have a motion and second, are there any further discussion? All right, all those members of the Board of Adjustment, please vote if in favor by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries unanimously. That variance is granted. Now I think we're ready for number 4, which is the tower, the proposed tower at Whirland Park. Any questions or anything further from Mr. Holscher? Any questions of Mr. Holscher? And again, this is a replacement tower of replacing a tower of 30 feet with a tower of 35 feet. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Mary Clark. Approve me, right?
Is there
I
a
made a
second?
motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Sharon.
Sharon Racino seconds. All right. Again, I'll go through the through the various requirements. A, there are unique physical circumstances or conditions, such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot, or other physical conditions peculiar to the affected property. Just interject comments if you have any as I go through this. That the unusual circumstances or conditions do not exist throughout the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. That because of such physical circumstances or conditions, the property cannot reasonably be developed in conformity with the provisions of this title. D, that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the applicant. E, that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of development of adjacent property. F, the variance, if granted, is the minimum variance that will afford relief and is the least modification possible of the title provisions which are in question. And finally, G, that the variance, if granted, will not permit development in a flood hazard area, in a geologic hazard area, or on a lot having a slope in excess of 30%, contrary to the provisions for such development as cited in this title. Are there any comments or questions before we take a vote? All right, all in favor of the raising the tower at Whirland Park, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion carries and the variance is granted. I believe that concludes our meeting. Is there anything further that needs to be discussed or anybody have any comments or questions?
I have one question. I'm sorry, guys. I missed who moved and seconded for Whirland Park. The last one.
Mary Clark moved and Sharon Racino seconded.
Thank you.
And we have an interested person, Jennifer.
Kathy Grant.
I see that.
We would welcome a fifth member.
We need a
haven't
fifth
opened it.
member. Tell Jennifer, I think you have to ride the,
All right. Well, thank you, representatives.
Thank you.
Xcel Energy.
I'd like to say hi to Kelly.
Letting me be in on this.
Kathy, come by town hall.
Okay, I'm gonna be there
Hi, Cass.
today.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Great to see you. Come
so
by
fun
town.
to see you.
Thomas,
Okay.
Come by. Come to
I will.
Georgetown and see me.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Nigel and Anderson.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I
So
second.
moved. Second.
Corley
Thanks,
seconded.
everyone. Sorry I was late.
Corley, you can second.
All in favor?
Thank you,
Say aye.
everyone.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
We are
Aye,
adjourned.
aye.
Thank you all.
Aye. Thanks.
And it's great when I see my former students.
Right.
Tell her about your store.
Well, Kelly, I don't know if you remember, my family has the store in Georgetown, which has been in our family now for actually 4 generations. So come by Nigel and Anderson and see me. We're right on 6th Street, right next to the where the Christmas market is. Love to see you. I don't know. if
How do
she's
you
on.
get off this thing? Any tricks?
I didn't hear that.